Everyone. I would like to begin by reading my statement in French, and then afterwards I will make my short statement in English. Good morning, and thank you for being with us this morning. Over the past 3 weeks, I have received thousands of messages of support from Canadians right across the country, Canadians who want a real choice in the October 2019 election. I have been in contact with hundreds of people wishing to get involved as volunteers or stand as candidates. And this was the case even before the party became officially registered. Many groups of supporters are now being organized in the various regions. We have already raised $140,000 from very generous donors, even though it is not yet possible for us to issue tax receipts. Setting up a new political party is a long process, and it will take many more weeks to complete it with Elections Canada. However, today we are taking a new and very important step with the unveiling of the name, the logo, and the website of the new party, and as well the opening of our headquarters in Gatineau. So, here it is, the People's Party of Canada, PPC.
Pourquoi ce nom?
Why this name? Because it is time that the government put the Canadian people first when they make decisions or set public policies. It is time to put power back into the hands of the people. For too long, Canadian politics has been hijacked by interest groups, cartels, lobbies, international organizations, corporate or union interests, and the interests of politicians and bureaucrats in Ottawa who have lost touch with ordinary Canadians. That is why government never stops growing. Taxes and regulations never stop increasing. The Liberal government is out of control and out of touch. It has become unable to solve basic problems such as the migrant crisis and the pipeline approval. We see it in the way the old parties try to attract votes and support both the Liberal Party and the NDP and the Conservatives, not by offering solutions that appeal to all Canadians, but by pandering to various groups and dividing Canadians into little tribes that can then be bought with promises, privileges, and taxpayers' money. But nobody speaks for all Canadians. Nobody speaks for ordinary people. The People's Party of Canada will fight for the same fundamental values that I put forward during my leadership campaign last year: individual freedom, personal responsibility, fairness and respect. We do not believe that government intervention is a solution for everything. The government should not intervene to solve each and every problem on the road to a utopian and unrealistic vision of society. We want smaller government because we support individual freedom and personal responsibility. We have faith in people. We have faith that they have the ability, the dignity, and the right to make their own decisions and determine their own destiny. The People's Party will restore fairness in this country by denouncing taxes, programs, and regulations that protect industries from competition, create barriers to trade, and force consumers to pay more for goods and services, that discourage investment, crush private initiative, and the dreams of young entrepreneurs, that force citizens to be content with inefficient government services and prevent private alternatives from emerging, that unfairly distribute wealth from some provinces to others while keeping the recipient provinces in poverty. The People's Party will respect the taxpayers, respect our Constitution, equally respect all the regions, provinces, and territories, and respect our traditions, our history, and what makes Canada Canada a unique place in the world without trying to forcibly change it, like the current Liberal government is doing. In the coming months, I will be defending these principles consistently, openly, with passion and conviction, as leader of the People's Party of Canada. We intend to have 338 candidates at the general election next year and be a competitive player everywhere. I invite all Canadians to go to the People's Party website at peoplespartyofcanada.ca to become a founding member, get involved, and be part of history. Thank you.
Maintenant, en anglais.
Now in English.
Over the past 3 weeks, I have received thousands of messages of support from Canadians across the country who want a real choice in October 2019. I have been in contact with hundreds of people wishing to get involved as volunteers or stand as candidates. Many groups of supporters are being organized even before the party is officially registered. And we have already raised $140,000 from very generous donors, even though it is not possible for us to issue tax receipt yet. Setting up a new party is a long process, and it will take many more weeks to complete it with Elections Canada. However, today, we are taking a new and important step with the unveiling of the name, logo, and website of the new party and the opening of our headquarters in Gatineau. Here it is, the People's Party of Canada, PPC, le Parti populaire du Canada, PPC. Why this name? Because it is time that the government put Canadian people first when they make decisions and policies. It is time to put the power back into people's hands. For too long, Canadian politics has been hijacked by interest groups, cartels, lobbies, and international organizations, corporate or union interests, and the interests of politicians and bureaucrats in Ottawa who are disconnected from ordinary citizens. This is why government never stops growing, taxes and regulation never stop increasing, the Liberal government is out of touch and out of control. It has become unable to solve basic problems such as the migrant crisis and pipeline approval. We see it in the way the old parties try to attract votes and support, not by offering solutions that appeal to all Canadians, but by pandering to various groups and dividing Canadians into little tribes that can be bought with promises, privileges, and taxpayers' money. Nobody speaks for all Canadians. Nobody speaks for the people. The People's Party of Canada will fight for the same fundamental values that I have put forward during my leadership campaign last year: individual freedom and personal responsibility, respect and fairness. We don't believe that government intervention is a solution for everything. Government should not intervene to solve each and every problem on the road to a utopian and unrealistic vision of the society. We want smaller government because we support individual freedom and personal responsibility. We have faith in people. We have faith that they have the ability, the dignity, and the right to make their own decisions and determine their own destiny. The People's Party will restore fairness in our country by denouncing taxes, programs, and regulation that protect industries from competition, create barriers to trade, and force consumers to pay more for goods and services, that discourage investment, crush private initiative and the dreams of young entrepreneurs, that force citizens to be content with inefficient government services and prevent private alternatives to emerge, that unfair distribute wealth from some provinces to others while keeping the recipient provinces in poverty. The People's Party will respect the taxpayers, respect our Constitution, equally respect all regions, provinces, and territories, and respect our traditions, our history, and what makes Canada a unique place in the world. In the coming months, I will be defending these principles consistently, openly, with passion and conviction as leader of the People's Party of Canada. We intend to have 338 candidates at the general election next year and be a competitive player everywhere. I invite all Canadians to go to the People's Party website at peoplesparty.ca, become a founding member, get involved, and be part of history. Thank you. Merci.
Alors, Philippe Vincent Foisy, I will ask you to be brief, and because I have already 12 people on my list. Okay.
Oui,
Philippe Vincent.
Bernier, il y a des
Mr. Bernier, there are a certain number of principles you lay out in your speech, but in concrete terms, do you have a specific figure in mind for the immigration levels? In concrete terms, what exactly are you promising to do? Well, in concrete terms, the platform of the party is based on the policies that I brought forward during the leadership race, and we have specific policies when it comes to the economy and equalization and so forth. When it comes to immigration, we will be bringing forth a policy later on. But I can tell you that what we've said is very clear. We want to have a debate on immigration levels. It's not true that this is a taboo subject in Canada. There are people who are in favor of more immigration. There are people in favor of the status quo. And I'm in favor of immigration levels that will allow people to become properly integrated in Canada. And I said during the leadership race that I think we should come back to the average over the last 5 years under Mr. Harper. This is the figure that I put out there, but I'm prepared to debate this with Canadians. What makes you believe that you will succeed where Preston Manning and others were not able to form a government? Do you want to be an opposition party or form a government? No, we want to form a government. We're going to be running 338 candidates. We will be competitive. So what's the difference? Well, we're a party that is a coalition of people who are fed up with traditional policies where politicians say one thing one day and the opposite the next day. We want to have authentic policies, and we have the courage of our convictions. There are debates that have to be held in Canada. That's necessary now. And for us, this movement is building. We have the social networks that are different. That's different from Mr. Manning's time. Those networks did not exist. And we're using these networks to try and draw attention to what we're saying and bring in members to this party. As you saw last week, we created a Facebook page where people immediately began to join us. So we have built this organization, and we will be continuing to build it, but we think we can attract people who, as I say, are fed up with current politics. The 30% of Canadians who never vote in a general election, and I believe that we can attract also disappointed Liberals who don't like the Liberals' deficits and their high taxes. Liberals who liked balanced budgets under Chrétien and Martin. We also think we can attract people who are socialists and who want policies in place that will help the poorest members of society, such as the abolition of the cartel of supply management. So I think we can attract those people. We can also attract them by getting rid of business subsidies. This is not just a slogan, it's a reality. There are 5 government agencies that distribute subsidies to businesses across Canada, and we have to get rid of that, save that money, and lower taxes for all businesses in Canada. So with a platform that's based on principles such as freedom and fairness and respect and responsibility, we think we can attract many, many Canadians to this movement, Canadians who want real change in this country.
Daniel Leblanc, Globe and Mail.
Daniel Leblanc. So you have managed to raise 140,000 people. Will you make public the list of donors? Are you abiding by the limits set by Elections Canada? Thank you for that question. I wanted to address that. First of all, it's about 2,000 or 2,500 donors. It's $140,000 that we've collected as of this morning, and this is under Elections Canada's rules. values. Now, there may be a different interpretation of the legislation, but we believe only individuals have the right to provide a donation with a maximum of $1,575 per year. Now, the only difference between the money we're raising and what other parties are doing is that we cannot issue any receipts at this time. Once the party is officially registered, we will be able to issue receipts as the regulations under Elections Canada provide for. So donations can only be made by individuals.
I'm very proud that we were able to raise $140,000, and we are doing that with people all across the country that want to donate to create this new party, and we are respecting Election Canada legislation. So yes, people who can donate, it's only individual, Canadian individual that can donate with a maximum of $1,575 a year, and we don't use any loopholes in the legislation. So it's we are doing that battle with other political party at the same level, and we are playing the same game and respecting the legislation. So I'm very proud of that.
The other issue that you've raised is the issue of Canadian values. Is this a coded message with respect to Muslims or religious minorities? What do you mean when you talk about Canadian values and people who may dilute those values? Well, I've always said that diversity can remain a pillar of this country, but that diversity is important. At the same time, I think it's important to talk about what unites us. And in my opinion, people who come to Canada, as they did over the last 100 years, come to share Canadian values such as freedom, responsibility, and equality between men and women, respect and tolerance in diversity. So I think we have to promote what unites us rather than doing what the Liberal government is doing, which is to promote extreme diversity. And I am not in favor of extreme multiculturalism. I think we have a right to question that. That's a political philosophy that I question. And I would like to see Canada continue to welcome immigrants, continue to welcome people from other countries, and I want to see those people become fully integrated in society. That's why there needs to be an appropriate number of new Canadians that the Canadian society can actually absorb. And that would be appropriate for them and a good thing for the people coming into Canada to be able to have a job, to be independent, to be able to take advantage of the benefits of Canadian society. What I'm questioning really is the Trudeau government's cult of diversity at all costs. I think we should be promoting what unites us here in Canada, and that's exactly what I intend to do. Yes, you've talked about extreme multiculturalism, but what exactly are you referring to? Could you give us some examples? You say that you're in favor of multiculturalism, but what examples are out there that suggest to you that it's going too far? Well, I think that people coming to Canada should be coming to share our Canadian values, as I just said, and in that diversity of values. So I don't think we should be promoting people coming to Canada who have extremely different values. The last time I talked about a new Canadian, a newcomer, who may think that gays don't have any rights in Canada, for example, and that all gay people should be hanged. So if there's one that thinks that way and one that thinks based on Canadian values, I don't think that diversity is a good thing. I'd rather have two people coming to Canada who believe that gay people have a role to play in Canadian society and that they're an integral part of our society. So it's that type of diversity in terms of our values that we must not be promoting. What do you say to people who will say that you're just doing the same thing as other parties who become extremely populist around the world. Well, there are different types of populism. If you look at political parties in Europe, there are populist parties on the left, there are populist parties on the right, and there are populist parties on the center-right. So if you think that I am engaging in that, well, I can tell you my politics is based on smart politics, based on principles. I am not trying to do politics with a view to exploiting the extremes within society. I am interested in smart populism based on serious reforms, necessary reforms in Canada, serious public policy that are well thought out. So I have no problem with being called a smart populist, if you will.
John Gillis, Maclean's.
You say you want to promote things that unite Canadians.
Yeah.
Do you think that the popularity of universal health care, as it's guaranteed by the federal spending power under the Canada Health Act, has been one of the things that has tended to unite Canadians?
Yeah, the Canadians, what they want good healthcare services, and I think we can do better in Canada. We can do better, and that's what I want to do. I want to have the right policy that will help Canadians to be able to have these services when they need it, so we can improve. If you look at other countries, like in Europe, they have both delivery of services by public delivery and private delivery, and we can have that discussion in Canada. We have some private delivery of services in certain provinces, and I think we must have that debate. That will be good, and the goal of that debate is at the end to be sure that Canadians will have better services for their healthcare needs.
In that debate, would you be arguing for an end to the Canada Health Act as we know it?
We don't need to change the Canada Health Act for having more private delivery of services in Canada. We don't need to do that. You have private clinic in Montreal, in other provinces, without changing the Canada Health Act. So that's not the priority. The priority is to why the federal government will tax Canadians and use that money after that to give that to provinces for health care. I believe that provinces are independent in their jurisdiction. So health care, it's a provincial jurisdiction first. So we must maybe stop to tax Canadians and let provinces taxes for their own responsibility, like health care. And like that, a citizen from Ontario, they will know who to blame if they don't like the services that they're receiving. Right now, they don't know who to blame. Is it the federal government because the federal government is not giving enough money to a province, or is it the provincial government because they don't know how to manage their healthcare services? So they don't know who to blame. I want the responsibility be in the hands of the provinces first, and for that you need to change it. You need to change it and allow provinces to give more maybe private delivery of services. At the same time, keeping the Canada Health Act. It's going together.
Guillaume, le Journal du Québec.
Dites-moi, est-ce qu'il va y avoir une course à la direction?
Will there be a leadership race in your party? No, there will not be a leadership race in a few weeks, and this is part of the process. And that's why I said that theoretically I am the future leader of the People's Party. We will be forming a board of directors for the party, and the board will vote on the program and the conditions behind the party, and also for the leader. So the board of directors will be deciding all of that, and that will be part of the documents we'll be putting forward to Elections Canada with the required number of signatures. But people who share our values are welcome in our party, and people who do not share our values are not welcome in our party.
L'arrivée de votre parti sur la scène politique va sûrement faciliter la réaction des libéraux, c'est ce qu'à peu près.
This will certainly result in a reaction from the Liberals, your new party. I don't agree with your question, really. I have a challenge in front of me, and my challenge is to prove in the next few months that this party is the real alternative to Justin Trudeau's government, and that's what we're going to do. We are going to build the party, have riding associations right across the country, have a serious platform. We already have a platform, at least 90% of it, and we will show Canadians that we are the alternative. And we'll see exactly what's going to happen in the future, but we are starting this party in order to be the government in 2019.
Mr. Bernier, you mentioned several times that newcomers must adopt Canadian values. I'm wondering if you have any evidence that that's not currently the case, that people coming to this country are not adopting the values that you listed?
You know, what this country is right now, it's a great country. It's a diverse country with people coming from all over the world. So and I'm proud of that. What I'm saying that all the people who came in Canada, they were coming because of our Canadian values, and we must put the focus on that, like we did in the past. So it is not because I'm not saying that people who are coming today, they're not sharing Canadian values. I want to be sure that people who will come in the future, they will always share Canadian values.
So just to be clear, you don't have evidence that that's not the case now, so it's a solution in search of a problem right now?
No. What I'm saying is, Canadians are questioning that. 49% of Canadians are saying that there's too much immigration in Canada. 49% of Canadians are saying that. So I think I want to have this debate, and I'm very open for immigration. We must look at the level of immigration. I want the people who's coming, the people who will come to Canada will be able to have a job, to integrate our society. That's important also, and share our Canadian values. So let's have a real debate about that. That's what I want to do.
During your leadership, you said that you can't help who supports you. Some people who may have extreme views online, they support you. You can't tell people not to support you. Wonder, now that you're a leader of a new party, is there anybody you would say explicitly has no place in the People's Party? I'm thinking about people who may want to limit immigration, but for xenophobic or racist reasons.
Yeah, they don't have a place in our party. They don't have a place. I don't share these values. It's clear.
Well, people who do not share our party values are not welcome in the party. People who are anti-Semitic, for example, or people who want to eliminate immigration, they are not welcome in our party. That's quite clear. And I'm in favor of a different type of policy, and we will be bringing in people who share our values. And if they don't share our values, they are not welcome.
Bonjour, Monsieur Bernier.
There are some people who have accused you of harming the Conservative cause, including Brian Mulroney. I'd like to know what you say to those people, the people who are saying it's all about you. Well, the Conservative cause, I defended it very well during the leadership race, and I will continue to defend it. And what I'm saying to the Conservatives is to join our party. I think that would be the best way not to divide the vote, as some people are suggesting. But I'm not only calling on Conservatives to join us. I'm calling on a lot of people, including all those Canadians who don't vote in general elections, to join us. Why don't they vote? Because they don't like the politicians. People say one thing one day and something different the next, so they don't trust politicians. We're saying what the reality is, and politically correct is over and done with for me. We have to tell it like it is. So by doing that, I think that we can bring a lot of Canadians along with us, and I certainly hope that I can bring along a lot of the Conservatives. I hope that people who supported me during the leadership race Conservatives will also join our party. Up until now, things have been going very well. And since I resigned, we received more than 5,000 emails from people who want to be volunteers or candidates, who want to organize the riding association, and we will be working with all of those people to build the party. But what I'm saying to people is that Maxime Bernier has always advocated the same values, and I will continue to do that. And these are coherent values that are consistent with those in Western society. If we want a government that is smaller, that respects the taxpayers, well, we are the alternative, not the Conservative Party. It's going to be us, the alternative. Now, you say there's no more politically correct for you. How can you say that, or why do you say the Conservative Party is obsessed with what is politically correct? The Conservatives made a choice during the leadership race. Why do you think you're the savior of the Conservative movement? Well, look at the current policies of the Conservative Party. As I said at my last press conference, they do a lot of polling to see what position they should take. For me, if an idea is not popular, that doesn't mean that it's not fair and right. If it's fair and right, even if it's not popular, I mean, it's not wrong just because it's unpopular. But the Conservative Party is afraid of having these difficult debates. I talked about the equalization system. Now, their policy is to buy votes in various regions of the country. They try to pander to interest groups, such as the supply management cartel. They're giving a privilege to a certain group so that they can collect their votes. And equalization, they don't want to have a debate on that. I think we have to open up that debate. But they don't do that because they're afraid of losing support. And I think that what is motivating in politics is to debate those different positions that may be tough positions initially. But after that, when people hear what you have to say, I think Canadians will be with us because we are defending fair and right policies. Now, supply management. When I started 2 years ago, nobody even knew what supply management was. And, you know, the polls said that people were in favor of it. But the more we talked about it, the more people understood what it was all about. And now, if you do a poll on that, you'll see that a large percentage of the population wants to abolish that system. And it's somewhat amazing that I'm the only politician saying things like that. The Trudeau government is threatening 20% of the economy in negotiations with the U.S. to protect a privilege for 10,000 producers against the interests of the entire country. So that's the difference between our party and other parties. We don't do politics that way. We will bring forward policies that may not be popular initially, but once we talk to people, we know people are smart. We know we can win. And today, you saw Ms. Freeland. She went to a conference where the President of the United States was called a tyrant, and then she has to go back to the negotiating table and negotiate NAFTA. What kind of credibility can she have? And then, of course, we see legislation being changed with respect to gender and climate change. But the NAFTA negotiations are not about that. The idea is to ensure that there's proper trade between the countries. And the fact is, we don't have that. We're in a very difficult situation now, and the government has to make the right decisions. We cannot not have free trade with the United States. We are too integrated. 20% of our economy depends on trade with the U.S. And we began a trade war with the U.S., and we know we can never win that trade war. The U.S. is bigger than us. So what I'm saying is that rather than doing what Mr. Scheer and Mr. Trudeau are saying, I think we have to sit down at the same table with Mr. Trump and seriously negotiate with him by, first of all, talking about the abolishing of supply management for all of Canada instead of threatening many jobs in the auto sector, among others.
Mr. Bernier, so if 49% of Canadians think that there's too much immigration, are demographers and economists wrong? You know what I mean? About, no. And also, if there's no problem that you see with current immigrants coming to Canada having non-Canadian values? What's the frame of this debate?
We have a problem right now with the migrants that are crossing the border. That's a big problem, and the federal government, they're not able to deal with it right now. And you know, what we must do is to have this debate. Let's have this debate. Some economists are saying something. The population is saying something. So let's open that debate. What will be our country in 20 years from now? What is the vision? What vision do we have for our country in 20 years from now? I want people coming from all other countries being able to integrate our society, being able to have a job, being able to have a family, being able to have a great life, but also sharing our Canadian values. Let's have a question about the future of our society. And the problem right now that we are seeing, it's a crisis with the migrants that are crossing the border in Quebec. The federal government, they're not able to deal with that. They must deal with it. They must sit with the President Trump and having a discussion about the agreement that we're having on that subject with them. So they're not credible right now with their counterpart, their U.S. counterpart on that subject.
So what would you do differently, and sort of make this a two-parter, but you say Canadian values. What are Canadian values for you? What does that mean?
Let's have a discussion about the ratio. Right now, we have economic immigrants, we have reunification of family, and we have also the refugee. Let's change the ratio. What I want to do is change that, having more economic immigration, less reunification of family, and a little bit less of refugee. Let's have a discussion about that. That's just what I want to do, and I think Canadians want that also.
What about Canadian values? Sorry. Yeah. What are Canadian values for you?
I said that in French. I said that before. It's respect in the diversity of people, respecting that, respecting the rule of law, equality before the law, equality between men and women. That's the share of values, and we must promote that.
OK. Mélanie Marquis, Presse canadienne.
I'd like to come back to Canadian values. You say you don't want people coming to Canada who think that gays should be hanged. But how can those people be properly screened upstream? Well, if we're promoting those values, the people who came to Canada over the last 100 years came to Canada because they knew the country, they wanted to share our values. So I think we have to continue to have a policy that advocates Canadian values, but what I want is for us to change the ratios between economic immigrants, reunification, family reunification, and refugees. And how can we do that? Well, I mean, that's a very good question. Let's be open and let's have a discussion about it. That discussion is not happening right now, and that's what I want to do. You ridiculed the idea of Ms. Leach's Canadian values. Well, we're going to have that discussion with Canadians. We'll listen to them and to their concerns, and we will come forward with more specific ideas. On immigration, Mr. Legault is going to ask the federal government to do something about immigrants who do not meet certain criteria, to remove them after 3 years. It's a question of policy, but Quebec did sign an agreement with the government of Canada and is able to control its own immigration. If Mr. Legault is elected and if I'm Prime Minister, we will discuss that issue at the time.
Maybe, sir, just before I ask my question, the point you made about how you would deal with, for instance, an immigrant who wanted to hang gay people, as you suggested earlier. What is your proposal for that? Can you just repeat that, please?
Well, what is the proposal? It's to, first of all, we must have a debate about all that. We didn't have that debate in Canada, and I just want us to have that debate first. Second, what is the solution? The solution is to promote our Canadian values, doing that better, not promote more diversity, promote what unites us. That's the important thing. How are we going to do that? That's a good question, and we'll have that discussion with Canadians, and we'll see what will happen in the near future about that. But my party will have that discussion, and just stay tuned, and you'll see what kind of proposal we'll have, concrete proposal we'll have.
My questions, I want to ask you, pick up on a point that Alex made earlier about perhaps people who are, in some cases, xenophobic or whatnot, who are attracted to what are you going to do about screening candidates? Because you want to attract a broad coalition of people. Some of them may have those values. How are you going to keep those people out in terms of being candidates?
These people won't be candidate for our new party. That's it.
How do you screen for that?
We are working on our constitution of our party. The constitution will be public when we will table all our documents to Election Canada, and you'll see in the constitution who's having the power to do what.
Pot legalization. Mark Emery really likes you. You voted against C-45. What would Prime Minister Maxime Bernier do differently in 2019 with marijuana legalization?
But first of all, it's a bad legislation. There's a lot of things that we can improve, and we must improve it with that legislation. So we'll see what will happen, and we'll have discussion about that if we have a Bernier government, and we will want to, the police forces, they may be not ready for that. The Trudeau government want to push that legislation, and actually that will be in force in a couple of days from now. But what I want to do, we are having that debate in Canada, and that will be a done deal, but maybe we can improve the legislation.
Denis Bellavance, la presse.
Monsieur Bernier, un des moments forts du campagne électorale, c'est le débat des chefs. Croyez-vous que vous devez être invité?
Do you believe that you should be invited to the leaders' debate? Yes, I think I should. The party didn't have a name yesterday, but this morning, we're at 12, 13, 14% in the polls, so we're showing that we're an alternative, and my challenge is to convince more Canadians to look at our option and to vote for our option. And I certainly hope that we will part of the leaders' debate. We are going to be debating these issues in the fall in the House of Commons, and I hope to be there for the leaders' debate. Yes.
La réforme que vous préconisez.
No. With respect to equalization, what kind of reforms are you advocating, specifically as they affect Quebec? Well, this is nothing new. I made a speech on equalization 6 months ago. The fact is, the formula is unfair. Why? Because there are energy resources that are not calculated the same way under the equalization formula compared to oil resources. So I think we need a new formula that is fair, and a new formula that's going to encourage the provinces to develop their own resources. Right now, there are fewer problems for a province that is receiving equalization. But the fact is that it's unfair. We need to debate this. More Canadians have to be aware of what that formula consists of. It's in the Canadian Constitution. The logic of equalization is a healthy thing, but the way it's done should be questioned. And I have a formula that's going to encourage the provinces to develop their own resources, and that will be fair for all the regions of the country.
You spoke about wanting to attract current Conservatives. Have you spoken to anybody from the Conservative caucus since
No. No.
So how do you, without any of that...
I want to attract the base, the people.
Do you not feel that having a backing from, I suppose, some sort of party establishment, people who say, hey, this guy's legit, it would help lend to gaining some of those grassroots supporters who may be feeling wary about splitting the vote?
No, I'm not looking to have the support of my former colleagues. I respect their position. I didn't call them. I didn't ask them for their support, and I don't have time for that, actually. So you'll see. Yeah, I'm very busy to speak with people who are calling and want to help. So I'll do that. But you'll see in a couple of weeks from now, when we'll do another announcement about the executive of our party, you'll see some people at the executive of the party that are very great Canadians.
Okay. In terms of fundraising, are you going to be holding what people deem cash for access events, where people can come to an event and pay money to sit down with you?
Yeah, right now the fundraising that the $140,000 that we raised since my resignation, it's coming from emails and social media. So yes, we'll have traditional also fundraiser, and I'll do it like I did during the leadership campaign. But we have to follow the rules, and we will follow the rules with the maximum donation like I always did. So I hope that we'll be able to raise the money that we need, but I'm pretty confident. I think I surprised a lot of people being able to pay back the deficit of my campaign in less than 13 months. We raised more than $3 million in the last campaign. I did that. We did that. And I raised around $275,000 last year to pay the deficit. So I think we're going to be able to raise money for being an efficient party.
Qu'aucun de vos anciens collègues du Parti conservateur.
How many of your former conservative colleagues will be supporting you? Well, I mean, they're not real conservatives. I defend conservative values, fewer taxes, and I'm saying how that can be done. When the Conservative Party says they're against business subsidies, if you ask questions, they'll say that they want to keep the 5 regional agencies that give out those subsidies. When they say they want to lower taxes for people, then in the next breath they'll say, yes, they can do it, but there are only certain groups of society that will get this, and I would abolish all of that. I would have 2 levels of taxation for Canadians, 15% and 25%, and raise the level at which you stop paying taxes, make it $15,000. So if you ask them those questions, they have no answers. And the most disappointing thing is that they're defending a socialist policy from Justin and Pierre-Elliott Trudeau. The dairy cartel, this was implemented by the Trudeau government, and they're very proud to be able to defend Pierre-Elliott Trudeau's policy. So I don't need any conservatives like that. And besides, they are hypocritical. There are a number of these people who privately will say that they're against the cartel, but they can't talk about it, or they won't talk about it. And I won't give you any names today out of respect for them, but there are many of them who are hypocritical and defend a position that they don't believe in privately. So I'm not going to do politics like that. That's over and done with. When I was a minister, yes, I defended supply management out of ministerial solidarity. I wanted to be sure that the government would change its position, but I didn't succeed in making a change. I wanted to change Chapter 5 on supply management. Now I have other concerns. But I said at the time, yes, okay, I would defend supply management, but I'm no longer involved in politics like that. I'm not going to do things I don't believe in. And that party, I mean, the positions that we have are good for Canada. They're in line with the principles of fairness and respect and freedom and so forth. And I'm prepared to say what I have to say, even if some people don't like it. And my colleagues try to please everyone. And when you try to please everyone, you end up displeasing everyone. So if you're asking me whether I would like to win the next election, yes, I'd like to win the next election. But if you look at the polls, you can win an election with 40% of the popular vote. That means you can have 60% of the people against you, and you still win. But so pleasing everyone doesn't work. You have to say what you believe in, what's good for the country, and why. And that's why we have people who are joining our movement. That's why this movement is building, because we're doing politics differently, and we're not afraid to get bad press one day because we said something. We're not afraid of taboos. There are no more taboos. We say what we think, and that's what people like, and that's what people appreciate. And my colleagues who are engaged in traditional politics, well, I don't need people like that in my party.
It was a long one. I said it. Sorry?
The part about 60%, could you repeat that in English, please?
Yeah, the politicians, they try to please everybody. And when you want to please everybody, you don't please everybody. That's not my way of doing politics. You like the ideas, you like the principle that we are fighting for, that's okay. You don't like it, that's okay. Don't vote for me. You know that the last election, I had a debate in both in the last election. And at that time, you know, I was a part of the government. And I had a meeting with the dairy producer in my riding in a debate only on agriculture. And they were asking me questions about the free trade agreement that we signed at that time. We not signed, but we negotiated at that time with the European Union. And they were not happy because, as you remember, we opened the market, I think that was for 3.5%. And they were asking me questions at the debate and didn't like my answer, but they really enjoyed the answer of the other, the NDP, the Bloc Québécois, and the Liberal that were debating with me. And at the end of the debate, I said to them, you know, I think you don't like my answer. If you don't like my answer, please don't vote for me. That's, you know, so don't try to please everybody. And to win an election, you need 40% of the votes. You can have 60% of people that don't like your ideas. So just be straight, be honest with people, and I think you'll be successful in politics.
J'ai encore 3 noms si je m'inclus sur la liste. Alors, ça achève. Mike Lecouteur, Global.
Mr. Bernier, you keep saying how much you want to do politics differently. Yeah. Do you see yourself as a disruptor like Doug Ford and Donald Trump?
No, you know, maybe the relationship or if you want to compare me with Donald Trump, maybe what I'm doing with the social media, that can be a comparison, but I think that's it. But, you know, we are doing something very different. I think it's unique in Canada, what we are doing right now. So I cannot compare myself with other politicians. But we will use more social media to speak to the people. And that would be a big difference than traditional politicians and the traditional way of doing politics. So, you know, people can... I'm Maxime Bernier, that's it.
Mais est-ce qu'on finira jamais, hein, il faut continuer à faire ça. On l'a fait depuis le début, on va le faire, mais j'aimerais ça que cette pratique-là ne se répète pas dans toutes les conférences de presse.
I don't want to see that practice at every press conference. You're taking time away from other people who want to ask questions.
C'est quoi la question, vite?
What was the question?
La seule comparaison, c'est
the only comparison possible is the use of social media to get across your message. That's it.
Dernière?
Okay.
Somebody else go?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Janice Dixon, CP.
Mr. Bernier, I want you to clarify a tweet for me that you sent out yesterday. You said that people from Nigeria who can buy a plane ticket and fly to the United States are not refugees. Do you what did you mean by that? Do you think that refugees can't buy plane tickets?
You know, it's not the definition of refugee. I know that it is not the definition. I was just saying that people who are coming and crossing the border in Quebec, and for me, you'll see, the government said maybe 50% of them or 40% of them won't stay in Canada because they're not real refugees. So I was using an example saying that maybe, yes, 40% of them, they will have to go back to their country. So it's a lot of resources that we're putting to be sure that we'll keep the right people. Why not solving the problem at the base and having a discussion about the safe third country agreement? That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Elections Canada requires you to hire 3 officers. Yes. Have you hired those people yet?
No, not right now. It will be no, not. I have people working on the head office right now today, and we have 2 people on the payroll right now working for the party. But for the executive that's the executive of the party. We'll do another announcement later with the executive of the party and people responsible for us in different regions.
Who's on the payroll?
Who's on the payroll? My porte-parole, Martin Mas, and also Maxime Bernier was working with me during my leadership campaign.
Moi, j'ai une question. Je trouve que vos réponses sur l'immigration...
I believe that your answers on immigration are at different levels. You talk about values, you talk about immigrants, and then you talk about ratios. So those are three separate things. But on values, how can you possibly ensure, because you didn't really answer this, how can you ensure that immigrants share our values? You said if someone, if there are two people wanting to come to Canada and one shares my values on gays and the other not, I want the one who shares my values. But how are you going to be able to ensure that when they enter Canada? Well, I'll repeat what I said earlier. We will have that discussion, and I don't have... Oh, yes, but I'm asking you specifically, do you agree with the idea of people being admitted based on a values test? Well, that's one potential solution. I didn't say that would be the solution. That's not what I'm saying. Let's talk about it, and later I will come forward with a solution that I personally advocate. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much, and have a great day.